Bud died peacefully in his sleep at the close of a very long, successful, and healthy life. According to Pastor David, he told me he'd only been in the hospital one time in his life. And Pastor David asked me to convey to all of you his disappointment that he's not able to be here to share with this goodbye at a time of remembering Bud. He told me he had gotten to know him quite well and liked him a lot. What I understand, who didn't, who got to know him well. He enjoyed visiting with him, and he's sorry that he couldn't be here this morning. Also, I've been asked to offer a special thank you from those close to Bud on Sybil's behalf to the staff of the hospice who meant so very much to Bud and to Sybil, and all of the gracious and wonderful, loving things that they did to make life a quality experience right to the end. And if you were looking in the little folder that you have of the people who have survived Bud, you may have looked in vain for Jan Anderson's name, and that's not intentional. It should read Arthur and Jan Anderson, who deeply miss Bud. I was told that Bud was only 10 days old when his father died. His mother remarried, and Bud got a younger brother, Jim, all of whose children regarded Uncle Bud with a great fondness. One of them, Nephew Art, emailed me from the high seas where he and Jan are visiting Europe on a long-planned cruise of a lifetime. They too are sorry they're not able to be here this morning, but Art said, "My sisters and I were treated more like grandchildren than nieces and nephews. Our family was small and therefore close. We saw a lot of each other, and I will remember him and my Aunt Sybil as always being very good to me, and especially in these later years, they were always very appreciative of our concern and affection for them." Art remembered that Bud loved golf and played the game into his 80s. And Chuck was telling Bud stories before we came in here, and one of the stories that Art told me was how Bud, when he was very young, caddied at Keller and other of the East Side golf courses, and some of the men that he caddied for were gangsters. And he has stories about those experiences, but one of the things that was beneficial was their generosity when it came to tipping. It wasn't their money, they were glad to throw it. Bud served in Patton's famed Third Army. He was a jeep driver for an officer, I believe a colonel, and he told of often seeing General Patton, famous Patton, as he drove his officer to various meetings. Bud was in one of the first units to arrive on the site to free prisoners at Dachau. He would shuttle persons who had been confined, liberated detainees from Dachau back out, and then he would return with German war criminals who would be housed, detained there. But also, like most of the greatest generation, he didn't talk a lot about the war. He did talk about, and he did love, the fabulous lake home on Yellow Lake over in Wisconsin. It was a very, very special place for him, and he loved to show it off to his friends, and he loved to take friends over there. He enjoyed fishing and nature. He and Art went up to the cabin just a couple of weeks ago to open it up one more time. Art commented to me, I think he knew it was the last trip. Bud and Brother Jim started a business in St. Paul after the war, A&P Electric, repairing electric motors. According to Art, they closed the business in 1959, and Bud went to work for Electric Motor Supply in Minneapolis, selling used electrical equipment, and ultimately became president of the company, serving in that capacity till his retirement about 35 years ago. Both Art and Pastor Colby mentioned Bud's engaging personality and how visiting with him was so enjoyable. And that's what I kept hearing over and over as I eavesdropped out in the lobby a few minutes ago. Pastor Colby shared with me that Bud was an active member at Central. He joined in 1995. He was part of the monthly men's group that met regularly for lunch at Denny's in Maplewood. When he was 98, he and Sybil got a puppy, Joey, because Bud stayed very, very active and alive deep into his 90s. Anyone who can eat as many Wisconsin Friday night fish fries and still be able to live almost to 100 has to be exceptional. And Bud loved to eat those fish fries. He loved to eat, period. He loved to go out to eat and was always taking friends out with him because he wanted to be around people. He loved people. He liked to start up conversations. He will be remembered by his extended family and friends as someone who loved to laugh, someone who enjoyed his long life. I'd like to ask you, in a moment of silence, how would Bud answer you if you were to have asked him, Bud, how would you like me to remember you? Take a moment in this silence. How would Bud have answered you if you had asked him, how would you like me to remember you? Lord, we thank you for this servant of yours who loved his family, who loved his country, who loved your good creation and enjoyed it for almost a full century. To remember and celebrate this life is to call to mind your never-failing care for us, your gift of life itself.